All right, man, peace. You know, brother, sometimes when we do not pay appropriate attention to someone or something and the gifts that they have, when we finally come around to giving them their proper due, we give them an improper amount of due and overrate them, utilize hyperbole, things of that nature that do just as much of an injustice to them and those who are around them, their peers, as the injustice that existed when we were not paying them appropriate attention. I say that because Damian Lillard, in the aftermath of his game-winning and series-winning shot against the OKC Thunder, he seems to be going through a renaissance, a rebirth per se, of notice, acclaim, appeal, notoriety, etc. And due to that, there are many people on TV and NBA evaluators, basketball analysts, so on and so forth, who are now starting to utilize severe exaggeration. And they're claiming that Damian Lillard has had a better season than Steph Curry. One of them being Mr. Stephen A. Smith, who now claims that he would take Dame Lillard over Steph Curry just for this season. In other words, he would award Dame with the first team All-NBA. So, of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Damian Lillard seals a trip to the second round with a 37-footer at the buzzer over Paul George. Stephen A., is Lillard first team All-NBA over Steph Curry?
No. Dame, and I like Dame, Dame is not the first team All-NBA point guard over Steph Curry. As a matter of fact, I think the better conversation would be, is Dame the second team All-NBA point guard over Kyrie Irving? I would say yes, but I think that conversation is closer than who is the All-NBA first team player. Steph Curry is definitely the first team All-NBA player.
For me, he is. He's not better than Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter I've ever seen.
That's another attempt by many of these mainstream media sports dudes to try to marginalize Steph Curry. They always say the same thing. He's the greatest shooter I've ever seen. No, he does a lot more than just shoot. When I think of great shooters, I think of people like Steve Kerr, Craig Hodges, Tim Legler, etc. Specialists. Steph Curry is a great player. Being a great shooter is a component in his overall repertoire, in his arsenal.
I wouldn't pick Lillard over Steph Curry if I want a point guard on a team.
So then the point of what you're talking about is what? Are you saying that Dame had a better year than Steph?
With the exceptional play of Steph Curry, but I think this particular season, Damian Lillard is first team All-NBA because.
Based on what? What are you going to say? The normal nonsense where you try to penalize a great player for playing on a team that has the perfect system for him and the other components on the team, and allegedly playing with so much greater talent than what Dame Lillard has to play with. We already know where you're going to go with the Stephen A. Smith.
Because of what he's done with what he has had to work with. Nurkic has gone down.
Nurkic went down with about 10 games left in the season. Spare me with the bullshit.
CJ McCollum has gone down.
CJ McCollum went down with about 14 games left in the season. Knock it off.
And then when you look at some of the other parts around him, look at what he's done. He's averaged nearly 26 a game,
He has an infinite green light.
7 assists per game, nearly 5 rebounds per game. He shoots 44% from the field, which is less than the 47% that Steph Curry shoots. Obviously, 36% from three-point range, clearly less than a 43% from three-point range for Steph Curry. But Steph Curry
Wow, 43% from three for Steph Curry. Damn.
Not only has Kevin Durant on the floor with him and Klay Thompson on the floor with him.
Question, Stephen A. Smith. The season that Steph Curry had his best statistical season, was Kevin Durant there? The answer is no. So that means that trying to use the red herring that Steph Curry plays with KD, that's not something that we can create as a parameter in a debate between Curry and Lillard, because Curry has already proven what he can do without KD on the floor. As a matter of fact, the Golden State Warriors record is almost always better when KD is not on the floor with them. Now, when you need KD is when you get to the playoffs, because he can do things against opposing teams that even Steph can't do because of his slight frame and the fact that he's only 6'3".
To keep things honest, and since January 18th, spent a large chunk of time with DeMarcus Cousins on the floor with him as well.
Right, but was that an advantage or a disadvantage?
Well, but he also has the ultimate utility guy in Draymond Green, who pushes the ball up the floor, plays that point forward, definitely assists in making sure that Steph Curry gets the basketball.
Let's understand something. In the 2012-2013 season, many people believed that Steph Curry should have made the Western Conference All-Star team that year. This is when Draymond Green was a rookie coming off the bench. In the 2013-2014 season, Steph Curry led all voters in the NBA in All-Star game voting. This is before Steve Kerr got there. Draymond Green was still a bench player. So let's not try to attribute Steph Curry's success to Draymond Green.
And gets it in the right space at the right times. Not that any space matters to Steph Curry because he's the greatest shooter I've ever seen in my life. But I'm just saying, if you look at what Steph Curry has to work with.
You're talking about the system that they play in. That's a, it's so funny to me. All of a sudden, the Golden State Warriors in 2013-2014, they were a nice, young, up-and-coming team that was fun to watch. By the 2015-2016 season, with the same players, all of a sudden they were a quote-unquote super team. How did that happen?
Even though Terry Stotts is a damn good coach, I think we all agree what an exceptional coach Steve Kerr has proven to be. And the system that Golden State has and how unselfish they've been, it certainly facilitates the success.
Well, what actually facilitates Steph Curry's success is how unselfish he is, both on the court and off the court, and the fact that he's so proficient offensively and the way in which he changes the dimensions of the offensive game for his team. That not only makes the flow of the offense easier for him, but for everybody else. There's a reason why Kevin Durant is shooting 52% every season with the Warriors. He was always a relatively efficient and proficient offensive player, but coming to the Warriors has added about 3 or 4 percentage points onto his shooting percentage because he plays with Steph Curry. And there are metrics that you can evaluate and analyze that show you that Steph Curry is one of the most impactful offensive players in the history of the NBA. Like, he's up there with Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron, players like that. LeBron in his prime, I'm talking about, with Miami. That's how impactful he is.
Of a Steph Curry, tremendously. Damian Lillard doesn't have that at his disposal. Yet
well, we can't quite say what the Portland Trail Blazers have because their offense runs completely through him. And he's much more of a volume shooter than Curry is.
Portland's won 53 games. They're the number 3 seed in the Western Conference. Two of their other top players have been out for a chunk of time this season. What he has done with what he has had to work with pales significantly in comparison to what Steph Curry has to work with.
No, not quite. The Portland Trail Blazers, they actually have a pretty good roster.
And that is why I give Damian Lillard a first-team nod this season.
Steph Curry is the answer. He's not only better than Damian Lillard, he had a better season.
Thank you, sir.
He had a down-low MVP season.
Agreed. He's a bubble MVP. Like, he's outside of the top 3, but he hovers around, top 5.
Steph Curry, there's a very good case to be made, should at least be in the MVP conversation with James Harden and Antetokounmpo.
Well, that's every season, but they've been trying to shit on Steph Curry being the MVP of the league. Even you guys do not mention him as possibly being the best player in the NBA, not from a talent perspective, but just when you consider the impact, what he does on the floor and stretching out the defense. He's certainly always going to be a bubble MVP candidate while he's in his relative prime.
I mean, listen, you talk about, and I'm sick of this being held against Steph because...
So am I.
Because he didn't join the team, he created the culture of the team, and he's the engine that makes the team go. KD came and joined the team. But you talk about, and this is always held against him, his teammates. Yes, Steph plays with great players.
But what's funny about that, Max Kellerman, is that people make arguments from both sides of the table when it comes to the Golden State Warriors. They say, well, you can't give Curry that much credit because he plays with KD. And then you say they can't give KD that much credit because he came to the Warriors. Well, which one is it?
Does that mean we throw up our hands and say, well, since he plays with other great players, there's no really telling how great? No, we can tell. We can isolate Steph's value in certain ways. Like, for instance, how does the team do with just Steph and without KD? With just Steph and without, or with Steph and without Clay? But with KD, with Steph, with Draymond, but without the, all the different permutations, including just Steph without any of the other guys, the team barely changes. Think about that for a second. Steph by himself versus Steph with all the other guys, it's not that much different according to the wins and losses, and not only that, the plus-minus.
Agreed.
Steph, this season, who was the top offensive rated player in the NBA? Number 1, Steph Curry. This is an efficiency rating, right? Well, he's not asked to do as much. But again, when the other guys don't play, he does more, and he does it just as well as anybody else. Who has the top net rating of any starter? Steph Curry. Who has the top shooting percentage of any non-big? Because bigs are a lot of times shooting right in the paint, only in the paint. The answer is Steph Curry. Even in a season where people aren't paying attention, quiet is kept, he has a case that he's the MVP of the league. I love Damian Lillard. I love how he responds.
And it's so shameful how people try to go back to the 2015 season and claim that James Harden should have gotten the MVP over Steph Curry. And all they do is compare basic stats. If you were to view Steph Curry's stats per 36 minutes, you'd see that because of the efficiency of his team, for the most part, Steph barely played into the fourth quarter. I think that he averaged something around 31, 32 minutes a game that season. There were so many games where they were blowing out the other team before the end of the third quarter. He and Klay Thompson did not even play into the fourth quarter, while James Harden was out there averaging 40 minutes a game with the Rockets. And then people look at the stats at the end of the year and say, well, James Harden should have won the MVP. Get out of here.
Responded to the playoff failure last year with what he just did. But Steph Curry's first team All-NBA this season too.
Agreed. And he probably should have been last year as well, but he missed too many games, so they gave it to Dame. Nothing against Dame. Dame is a great player. He's just not on Curry's level when it comes to overall impact.
Well, first of all, nobody's disrespecting Steph Curry. I certainly.
Yes, you are. You're disrespecting him. As a matter of fact, you do it on a regular.
Certainly think he deserves to be in the MVP discussion, but last time I checked, so does Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard belongs in that discussion.
I'm not quite sure about that.
That's point number one. Point number two, we're not sitting there and holding against Steph Curry what he does on the basketball court in terms of the help that he has. We're simply acknowledging that he...
No, actually you are holding it against him, especially in light of the fact that his best season actually came before Kevin Durant got there. And when you assess the analytics, it shows that his teammates are the beneficiaries of his impact rather than the other way around.
That he has it compared to somebody like Damian Lillard who does not. Number three, what would Damian Lillard do if he had that level of help available? What if he was in single coverage a lot of times? What if he had...
That's interesting. So in other words, you're saying that you're not disrespecting Steph Curry, but you're basically saying that Damian Lillard, if he was playing in the Golden State offense, would have an equivalent or even better impact, because let the record show that you're saying that Dame is playing with lesser talent in a lesser system, but you're still going to pick him as the first team All-NBA. So really you're saying that Dame is better than Steph Curry.
Had the caliber of a Klay Thompson and a Kevin Durant. You're talking about one guy that's one of the top two players in the world. You're talking about the combination of three dudes who are three of the greatest shooters the game has ever seen, with a guy like Draymond Green facilitating things in the system, facilitated by Steve Kerr. What would the Portland Trailblazers be without Damian Lillard? How about we ask that question?
Well, maybe the Portland Trail Blazers are playing in an offensive system that is overly dependent on Dame Lillard. How about we ask that question, especially in light of the fact that they've never been to a Western Conference Finals thus far. So clearly there's something wrong with the system if you're going to compare Dame Lillard to Steph Curry. Because prior to KD getting to the Golden State Warriors, the talent disparity between the Golden State Warriors and the Portland Trail Blazers was not that vast. It really wasn't. I mean, how much better is Klay Thompson than CJ McCollum? Of course, I would take Klay Thompson over CJ just because of height and stature and defensive intensity. And also, the fact that he knows how to play within that winning system. But when we compare skill for skill, Klay Thompson does not just blow CJ McCollum out of the water.
I don't even think they'd be on the radar. They might be worse than the Sacramento Kings. So I think that we have to, not to say that the Sacramento Kings were awful this year.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say. I agree with you that without Dame, the Trailblazers will probably be worse than the Sacramento Kings. But the Kings have a nice young up-and-coming squad, man.
This year because they were not. I'm simply making the point that when you look at what Damian Lillard has had to work with, I'm not saying he's better than Steph Curry by any stretch of the imagination.
You seem to be.
I'm not failing to acknowledge the greatness of Steph Curry and how he's the greatest shooter we've ever seen in our lives.
Once again, you keep calling him the greatest shooter. How about one of the great players that we've seen in the history of the NBA? That's like looking at a chick. You know how these chicks, they get upset when they've gone to college for 10 years and have 5 million degrees. and some guy looks them up and down and says that they have a nice rack. They say, I'm not just my breasts. I've accomplished a lot. When you look at Steph Curry, he's a lot more than just a jump shooter, Stephen A. Smith.
I'm also paying attention, however, to the fact that you can give me a short window of material where we look at Steph Curry rather, without a Kevin Durant who missed a few games, or without a Klay Thompson. Damian Lillard played 80 games this year. Steph Curry played 69.
Well, that's probably your best argument. That's your best argument, that Dame does not get hurt. And that's something about him. He does not get hurt. Steph Curry, his kryptonite are them damn ankles, man. Steph Curry ankles are made of the same material as Amir Khan's chin.
Damian Lillard has missed 24 games in 7 years.
Great argument. But that still has nothing to do with the conversation about this season. I mean, unless you want to say Dame played in 11 more games than Steph, so he deserves to have the first team All-NBA because of that. Because that's pretty much the only criteria where he wins.
He's played 96% of his games. He's the number one option, and he's been devoid of the level of help that Steph Curry has had available at his discretion.
No, I'm not arguing
I'm saying
against
at some
Damian
point in
Lillard's.
time, how can we not do it? All right, then.
I'm not arguing
so that's what I'm
against
saying. He
Damian
belongs to that.
Lillard's excellence.
The things you said about Steph Curry, I could say about Damian
Yes,
Lillard.
I'm not
That's
arguing,
all my point is.
I'm not arguing against Damian Lillard's excellence. And your durability argument, I think, is actually your best one.
No doubt about it.
However, if we're splitting hairs, and that's what we're doing, you're right, because we're talking about two MVP caliber players.
I'm not quite sure if I would consider Dame an MVP caliber player. And certain brothers might say, well, how could you say that? Their stats are so close. Their team's records were so close this season. I get it. But at the end of the day, just going by the eye test, Steph Curry just makes it look so much easier than Dame does. And there's a huge difference between a player who shoots 48% and a player who shoots 43 or 44%. That means that each one of your possessions are far more successful because it takes less chances to actually score.
If you're splitting hairs and trying to isolate value, you will find that Steph Curry is a little better, including this season.
Stephen A., as long as we're splitting hairs, didn't you say this recently? Didn't you say you would rather, if you were starting a team, right? If you were starting from scratch, you'd rather have Russell Westbrook on your team over Damian Lillard. You changed?
Yeah, that dumb shit.
You changed your mind on that?
Yes.
Good for you, sir.
Yes, I did change my mind on that. And I did change my mind like that. And let me tell you why.
You don't have to do too much explaining. We saw why. It was a 5-game ass whooping.
Because it's important to point this out about Russell Westbrook. I have great appreciation for Russell Westbrook coming out there going 100 miles per hour, giving...
Well, that's part of the problem. You guys give him too much credit for trying hard, quote unquote. Life is not just about how hard you try. It's also about your mental acuity. It's about your understanding of having a game plan, not just on the basketball court, but in life, and being able to execute that plan. Russell Westbrook does not come off as someone who you want to be your floor general. He just does not have a point guard's mentality.
With everything that he has and doing it in a multitude of ways, rebounds, assists, etc., etc. But what I was reminded about this series is that there are certain people who play the point guard position that know how to play it better than Russell Westbrook, particularly when it counts.
Well, there are quite a few. And I mean, we're just going to talk about who you want in the clutch, those last 2 to 3 minutes of a game. I'm taking Dame, I'm taking Kyrie, I'm taking Steph all over Westbrook.
And I think Damian Lillard's one of those people. Yes, he played 11 games more than Steph Curry this year. Yes, he's played 96% of his game. Yes, he's been reliable and he delivers what he delivers in terms of numbers. But we also got to pay attention to leadership. We also got to pay attention to the fact that he doesn't go out there and get the help. Russell Westbrook has played with Serge Ibaka, Reggie Jackson, James Harden.
Steve, we're talking about this season. We're talking about this year. Because if we want to go back, then we could say, hey, well, you know, Dame played with LaMarcus Aldridge. He played with Batum and all this other stuff. Stick to this year.
Harden, Kevin Durant, all of these guys. Now he's got Paul George at his disposal. Damian Lillard has C.J. McCollum.
You talking about C.J. like he ain't shit.
Fact of the matter is, when we look at the years of the Portland Trailblazers with Damian Lillard over the 7 years that he has played in the NBA, how much true mega help. And I love C.J. McCollum.
No, you don't. You're lying.
Especially now, big-time shooter. We saw that last night. But how much help has...
C.J. McCollum is a top 5 shooting guard in the NBA. You better put some respect on that man's name.
Has Damian Lillard really had consistently outside of C.J. McCollum. At some point in time, when are we going to stand up and recognize that this brother is that kind of superstar in this game?
Right, but it's taken you long enough to stand up, Stephen A. Smith. I've known about this shit for a while now. I've been said that I would take Dame over Westbrook. Now, a couple of years ago, I had a pretty much even Steven between Dame and Westbrook because I saw Westbrook for what he was. He's the best action star in the NBA. That's all he is. He's never going to win an Oscar. And you dumbasses on TV are finally starting to figure it out because you've been too busy fangirling for this dude because he could put up 10 points, 10 rebounds, and 10 assists. Whoop-de-damn-do. But anyway, that's basically it on that, brothers. Congratulations to Dame Lillard for the season that he's had and also for the playoff run that he seems to be having. But is he Steph Curry? No, he's not. So peace.